banners that hung on posts jutting from some of the houses. A horse and rider knocked over a boy. The boy clutched at his foot and screamed. A man hurried to his side, grabbed him, and hoisted him into the air, settling him on his shoulders. While Charles had been watching the intruders, the High Sheriff and candidates climbed onto the hustings. The temporary stage had bunting in the party's colours decorating the wooden railing. A lectern, probably borrowed from St. Mary's, a venerable medieval church on the edge of the square, was set up for speeches. Sheriff Maitland pointed his finger at the gunman as he thundered up to the very edge of the hustings. "I see you, Wilfred Poor. You and your men are welcome to vote, but not until you hand over that shotgun." Wilfred Poor lifted the gun, and for a moment Charles stiffened, afraid he would fire at the High Sheriff. Instead, Poor fired into the air. The crowd ducked instinctively, including Charles. Initially, pandemonium reigned, but just as quickly as the crowd reacted with screams, they subsided, until the only nearby sound was a dog barking in one of the houses near the church. Poor lowered the muzzle of his gun until it was pointing into the belly of that giant Sir Augustus. "Where is my Amy? My daughter?" he screamed. Sir Augustus's lips curled, but he said nothing. A trio of his men pushed forward as if to provoke a reaction, but Sir Augustus's long arms spread out, holding them back. Poor repeated his anguished query, the tendons of his neck in high relief. "What's wrong, Wilfred?" Sir Augustus mocked. "Can't keep control of your own women folk?" One of the horsemen chuckled and glanced at the man next to him, his expression changing at the anger in his neighbour's face. "You aren't much of a man," Sir Augustus said in a teasing lilt. "Come now, Sir Augustus," one of the horsemen said in a rough country drawl. "Amy's been missing these past 3 days." "No one's forgotten she's your maid," added another. The shotgun, which Charles had not taken his glance from, shook in Poor's hand. The horseman closest to the upset father patted Poor's arm. "We know you've hidden her away," another horseman said to Sir Augustus. "Just give her back and we can get about this business of the election." "Speech!" called a brave soul in the crowd. The horseman closest to the speaker threw his hoe in that direction. A man fell. Charles craned his neck, looking for blood spill. No one screamed this time. The High Sheriff called for his men, a few local constables hovering around the edges of the bunting, to arrest the rider, but he wheeled his horse around and galloped off before they gathered their wits. One of the constables broke away for crowd control, pushing a couple of women who were attempting to climb the hustings to escape the horseman. Another knelt next to the fallen man. The last constable raced out of the square in pursuit of the villain on the horse. Charles whipped his head around when he heard the sheriff call out an order. Charles's brand-new hat caught in a gust, which sent it flying past the window of the public-house and down the shadowy street. He leapt off the rock to chase the expensive felted beaver cut in the Regent style. He loathed having to replace it so soon, and in a crowd like this some light-fingered thief would grab it if he took his eyes off it for even a moment. He reached out, his fingers just touching the brim before the hat flew again. Stumbling, he put on a burst of speed in front of the open door of a tobacconist and snatched his hat before it tumbled off the pavement and into the dirt road in front of the square. He glanced up, grinning with his success, and saw a young man, hat lowered over his brows. The lean form and rather worn clothing caught Charles's eye with a note of familiarity. The youth jerked. He straightened, then vanished around the side of the tobacconist's shop, black curls fluttering around his neck. Charles's thoughts flew back to last summer, and a vegetable plot not far from London's Eaton Square. Curls like that had spilled out from a straw hat, worn by the young farmer Prince Moss, so enamoured of the cold, beautiful, and amoral Evelina Jaggers, the foster-daughter of Charles's deceased neighbour. Charles followed the pavement to an alley passing behind the shop. He stepped in, figuring this was a small town and violent criminals were unlikely to be lurking in alleyways in daylight. The young man had vanished. Charles surveyed the collection of barrels and rubbish. He heard the crackling of a fire, probably coming from the smithy that backed up against the alley. A couple of warehouses boxed in the smithy. The youth could have gone anywhere. He turned away. His job was to follow the election, not chase men who had a clear right to go wherever they wanted. If it had been Prince Moss, he had reason not to greet Charles after the events of last summer. Charles and his friends had hoped that Miss Jaggers and her swain had left England entirely, but they were not wanted for any crimes. He returned to his stone perch.